Now, do you really know what your kids are watching online? Police have warned social media influencers are driving a worrying rise in extreme misogyny with so-called Andrew Tate copycat influencers, young men who post videos online to their millions of followers promoting an extreme side to masculinity. Worryingly, kids of primary school age are viewing the videos. And just this morning, Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips revealed it could take 20 years to tackle misogyny in schools. Judy, that is so worrying, isn't it?
It is very worrying. I mean, just the other day I was having this conversation, I saw a video online that was just so disturbing of a young TikToker who, just the way that he was talking about what he'd done the night before with a girl, which he said was consensual, but it was just so vulgar. The way they spoke about her, like she was just some rag doll, it was just really, really upsetting. And, you know, you just got to report that. And I told all the mums, because I'm in different mum groups for schools and whatnot, and said, look, just talk to your sons and your daughters and let them see if they're following this particular young man, because we've got to be able to understand that we're just one or two parent household and we are fighting against people who are having videos that's getting viral by 1 million views and feeling like they're at the top of the game and everybody's involved in that. And we know that violence against women is at its highest. And for me, there's another conversation in regards to, you know, the Met has said that black women have been at a higher risk since 2022 of being murdered, being assaulted or being missing. So for me, there's so many levels to this conversation, and starting from, you know, the area of speaking to our kids all the way up to adult age has to be done. And we've got to come together as parents, because this is a widespread, it's taking over.
Absolutely. Can I just read out... I've just got some quotes here from popular male influencers. One says, any fit girls 2025 with a body count under 5, shout me.
Wow.
In 5 years, girls who wear hose are worth nothing. To me, you're worth nothing and it's all your fault.
Wow.
I don't get why it's the new trend for girls to be hose in their 20s. If you're paying for a woman on the first date, they'd be willing to have sex with you. And women belong in the kitchen.
And the thing is,
I mean, this was young.
2024.
But it's such a multifaceted thing, because on the one hand, you've got the problem with young boys and why they're being attracted to this, and whether that's in part to do with the fact that they're feeling uncomfortable about their position in the world and they're kind of latching on to old ways of behaviour and
what they think is masculinity.
And what they think is masculinity, and that we're not
they don't
really
know where they stand anymore.
Yeah, because we've done a lot. You know, it's brilliant. We've done so much to empower women, and you know, we've still got a lot to achieve. But I think we've done less about helping boys to understand a different place in the world, and so they get vilified for this. Then you've got the fact that these huge tech companies are allowing, you know, they're not treated as publishers, and yet they publish all of this material. You know, on a TV show, in a newspaper, you actually have to be responsible for what you put out there, but these companies don't. And then you've got this problem, you know, in wider society about violence towards women. I mean, Jess Phillips saying this morning that it's going to take 20 years to deal with the current levels of violence. Now, if you're talking about 2 million women a year being victims of domestic abuse or sexual abuse, that's 40 million women in 20 years' time. That's what the number will be.
And
that's just not acceptable on any level.
And nearly 43% of that
these tech giants as well have to take more responsibility, because as regards social media and what the kids can see, that genie is out of the bottle. And no matter how many restrictions we think we can put on our children, once they leave that house with their phone, they are going to access what they want to access. And just as an example, I don't know if you remember, a few months ago, there was a hilarious video of a lady who'd been trying to crawl into a house through the window because she lost her keys. And she went down and her top came up and her boobs were pressed against the glass. And her and her friend were crying, laughing, and she posted it. I reposted it. It was taken down off my Instagram.
Wow. But yet some of these violent
this
videos...
TikTok guy, and Andrew Tate content, you know, which is also loved by a lot of young women as well as young men. He's still being interviewed by some of the big interviewers in this country. I don't understand why, when there's videos of him beating women out there.
There's a gap between where we've gone through this stage where a lot of women are seeking independence, and it's all about the pay, and it's all about you being independent and you own your home and so on. And then they're speaking out saying, you know, but they're still not settled down. I think some of these people men are using that as a form of, like, manipulation to say, oh, well, you're like this, you're still single, or you're not achieving that family life because you're not submissive, you're not doing what we're supposed to say.
We've also...
You've been out there doing all these things, that's why.
So I think that's one of the issues. Right, reply from TikTok. They said, according to TikTok, misogyny has long been prohibited, and community guidelines specifically call it out as a hateful ideology. They say 90% of content that violates their policies on hate speech and hateful behaviour is removed before it is even reported from them.
No, it's
Viewing it, and then Meta, who are owned by Facebook and Instagram, head of women's safety, has previously said the harassment of women is unacceptable. That's why we don't allow gender-based hate or any threat of sexual violence. But we see it on there all the time.
We see it all the time.
It's just utter rubbish. I mean, I made a whole documentary about this, and, you know, the fact of the matter is that for about 20 years now, all our kids who've been exposed to the internet have literally, it's like we've let them out into the Wild West, which we wouldn't do in the physical world, but we have done in the virtual world. And kids have grown up, and, you know, and particularly young boys, because so much of pornography is aimed at men, have grown up thinking that the kind of behaviours that they see, they're getting their sex education
They're thinking
online,
that is the norm.
you know, and they think it's normal. And, I mean, terrible things.
So do girls.
Anal rape,
yes.
You know, so many choking, all of these things that kids 30 years ago would not have even had in their vocabulary are now everyday occurrences, and you have to really think about where that's coming from. And I don't really care what they say. I know where it's coming from.
The thing is, you have to have...
From online platforms.
It's uncomfortable, but we have to have these uncomfortable conversations with our children. We cannot tiptoe around now and say, oh, the bees and this and what...
Well, we don't even know half the stuff.
Well, I know because I've got a friend who was a head of sexual health, and let me tell you something, I will say it to you straight. You need to be having these conversations with your children very openly and honestly about things that probably you're not even doing in your bedroom. Because these children are seeing it, and it is contributing to the violence in their mind.
But also not just to your girls about keeping safe and doing this. We need to have these conversations with our boys.
The boys, yeah, most definitely.
A 37% rise in violence towards women from 2018 to 2022. You can't say that's not to do with the amount of time that kids are spending online.
No, definitely not. Well, no doubt we'll be having this conversation again and again.
Again, but we have to. That's the great thing about a show like this. We have to have the conversation, and we do.